the top 10 at best Ark resource gatherers. So in at number 10 we have got the Achatina. If you didn't know, this is a really great passive way to get yourself cementing paste, sort of like how the Basilosaurus is a way of getting passive oil quite easily. And I do find, yes, you know, that could be an honorable mention for this list, although I have not got it included here. I just find this isn't the hardest thing to tame, just some sweet vegetable cake will get it done, and the fact that you can get loads of cementing paste through this is really useful, especially if you're on a server, because I'll be running all the time you're offline. Really amazing thing. So is the dung beetles as well, actually. So the shadow mane is something or just some creature that you may not consider to be a great resource gatherer, but in my opinion it really can do quite a bit in terms of hide and meat gathering. It is a very nice carnivore to use, extremely mobile, you can get around with ease, and it's actually quite a good creature for gathering some fish meat as well. It can be very easily done as it is a tremendous swimmer, and you do find that with a lot of carnivores. I was considering putting maybe like the Carnotaurus or the Rex on here, or the Spino, or a creature like that, but I find that these creatures do it better because they are more mobile. I'm not sure if the meat gathering rate is different and actually a lot higher on those, but I just find it's easier to get it done with those still really powerful small creatures, as they can just get everything done more effectively and efficiently. In my eyes, it really does just work well for me, and that is why I simply have to put these creatures on the list, as I really do love them for all of the gathering which they do for me, and I actually think they deserve a little bit more attention in the resource gathering community, because they definitely can do quite a bit which you might not expect them to do. The Castoroides is up next, and also the Megalosaurus, as the male Megalosaurus, as a short honorable mention, as it is a really great stats gatherer, and I really do commend it for that. I just haven't put it on this list because I thought it would kind of go nicely with this creature, which is the Castoroides. Of course, I've already said that, and this is your go-to wood gatherer, and obviously wood and thatch go hand in hand. One is a very useful resource for any kind of structure, guns, weaponry, and one is just naked zombo's absolute favorite resource. And with the Castoroides being so good at getting wood, they really do deserve to be on the list. Yes, obviously, I think it's like the chainsaw. I think it's called that, at least in the game. My mind is failing me at this time of day, or night, I should really say. But yes, that is a very good way of getting wood. But the Castoroides is also a splendid way too. It is relatively quick and agile and get around too. And actually, in the early game, it can be a reasonably good way to get silica pearls, as they're not the worst swimmers out there, and they can get away for some dangers. And on top of that, actually, they can pack some bite and punch as well. Definitely don't underestimate them in the damage department, although maybe you originally would. In at number 7, we have got the Stegosaurus, and it's just one of those creatures where you do have to respect it for its berry gathering. It is one of those creatures where it's like, it does its job effectively. You can say the Bronto is a very good suggestion as well, but the Stegosaurus, the OG, the Trike, and the Parasaur is also some good suggestions on top of that as well. But I find out of all of the creatures on the list, the Stego kind of deserves the most credit, as I find it can gather a lot of berries reasonably quickly, especially considering its size. Yes, maybe not quite to the volume of the Bronto, but it comes with a little bit more ease of use and also general versatility as well. I know they're not aspects which are on the list today, but still I thought I would factor that in, as they are just generally just nicer creatures to use on the whole. Also, they're a little bit more inconspicuous as well, so if you don't have cryopods yet, you can tuck them away more easily, and that's more useful obviously for PvP servers, but for PvE as well, you might just not have the space to facilitate something like a Bronto, at least not easily. Yes, you could leave them outside, but you risk them getting killed by some other dinos. And obviously they're great tanks as well for given PvP scenarios, and it is just actually pretty good at gathering wood as well. I think with the heavy plate, something like that. Either the heavy plate or the hardened plate. It'll probably be the heavy plate, because the hardened plate's the one used for turret soaking. But yeah, that one's actually pretty good for gathering wood as well. The Deinonychus, in my opinion, is sort of the upgrade to that meat and hide gathering thing. and that is why I've decided to put it here. Generally, I do prefer them as creatures. They have the bleed ability as well. The Shadow Mane doesn't, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, they don't have dehydration buffs. They're not going to be as good as gathering all kinds of fish, but still, they can kill big and large creatures really quickly. They can simply grapple onto them like that. You can even just bring one out. You don't really need more than that for all of your resource gathering needs. Quickly tear into shreds and get all of that meat and hide. You're going to have no issues whatsoever. Pretty great at gathering some chitin as well. Keratin is going to be easy too. And actually, that does remind me, if you're wondering about the Megatherium, I'm going to give that a brief honorable mention, as that is a really great chitin gatherer for its insect buff, where essentially if it kills an insect, it will rage and you can just get loads of damage out of it. But generally, going to a cave with pretty much any creature that is powerful enough to defeat everything with all of those bugs, you're going to have a lot of chitin out of it anyway. But the Megatherium really is going to farm tons and tons and tons, especially if you're in the insect cave. And there's another creature which is actually further on the list, which could be useful in that scenario as well, but we'll get onto it slightly later on in the list. But yeah, the Deinonychus, a great meat and hide chitin keratin gatherer. It takes no fall damage, really is an extremely mobile creature, and very much deserving of this spot on the list. In number 5 is the Theri, and I'll give the Moss Chopped a little bit of credit as well, although the Theri Shadow is unlocked at level 69. Either way, this creature is, in my opinion, the best fiber gatherer out there, whereas the Moss Chops is also a really great one, and really great for organic polymer as well, and I do really attribute it for that. And it is a great gathering tame. It's just, you know, there are so many creatures to really get through, and these are the ones that I've thought of first and resonate most with me. But if you do feel as if I've missed any creatures, I probably have acknowledged them in some way, or maybe at least tried to in this video. And even if I've completely missed them blatantly, I'm sure I'll still care. And leave a comment down below with what your favorite gatherer is, or gatherers which you think that I may have missed, as I always do want to know what maybe I could add to these videos into the future to maybe just make them better and in some ways more personalized to you as well, while still keeping the opinions valid to me as well. Yes, I know there's a lot of PvP players that watch my content, but do just take into mind that I'm a very PvE centered channel, so most of your PvP stuff, while interesting to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense overall. I'm really like not knowledgeable at all when it comes to any of that stuff. And yes, they're all very nice and useful tactics, but I'm just surely I don't really use them as much as maybe I should. Speaking of that creature that I was talking about before, with that insane gathering of not chitin but with caves and insects, you're going to get yourself a heck of a lot of cementing space with this thing, much faster and much quicker than the Achatina, obviously. And also, sorry about that part ramble on about the Theri there when I talked about other stuff. I went a bit off topic. I'll promise not to do that later on, and also just throughout the rest of this video. But yes, this is the best cementing space gatherer out there in my opinion. Beaver dams exist, but nothing does really compare to a creature like this. It is fast, agile, very mobile, and if you get a good level, it has enough health and damage to withstand some caves, especially even the insect cave. If you just take your time a little bit, you can get yourself tons and tons, tens of thousands of chitin. In fact, the real difficulty is just getting all of that chitin out of the inventory of this thing and out of the cave, because you'll be slot capped and overweight and all of that stuff as well. That's not the best situation to find yourself in, but they can just gather so much chitin. That's simply what they do. And also they can gather some fish pretty effectively as well. They are great swimmers, and you can do a little bit of combat with them, so some hide and meat wouldn't be the hardest thing out there to get, but mainly these things are the best for chitin gathering, which is useful in so many crafting recipes. In number 3, I've decided to put the Mantis, as I find it is a really versatile creature. Yes, maybe you don't think of it as a really great gatherer for all of or just specific resources, but the thing is, this thing can gather just so many things, anything that you can physically gather with a given melee weapon, that being meat, hide, chitin, keratin, wood, thatch, stone, flint, metal, obsidian, crystal, rare mushrooms, rare flowers, fiber and all of that stuff you can gather with this creature with absolute ease. You just simply need to equip that weapon, and you can get quite a lot of it pretty quickly. The only difficulty is sometimes the Mantis can be a little bit of a pain to tame, and especially if you aggro it. In some cases it's not the easiest or most friendliest thing to come to, but once you've got one, especially if you've got a high level one, you're really going to enjoy these things and their versatility in resource gathering, which is why I think they really do deserve the spot on the list. Again, I named just so many resources, and there are even more as well that these creatures can gather. Pretty much, again, any feasible resource that you can gather with any given melee weapon out there on a creature, or just actually that you can equip. Tech weapons, I'm pretty sure, do not work on this thing, and also just to bear in mind, the durability of the weapons will drop a lot more on a Mantis compared to when it is on you, so the weapons might break a little bit faster than you expect. At number 2, we have got the Desmodus, and this is just for actually maybe 2 simple reasons. They are really great at farming blood bags, and one of my favorite art creatures out there is the Bloodstalker, and also the Desmodus as well, and that is very useful for taming Bloodstalkers and the Desmodus as well, and they can give you a little bit of a nice healing boost as well, although the medical brews will work a lot better, and I'm pretty sure there is a timer on how fast you can consume blood bags as well, so not the best, but you still can use them in a pinch. But the main thing about this is the fact that they have Sanguine Elixir, which is an absolute cheat for Tames. The fact you can craft it with the resources that it gathers, obviously being blood bags, it's also great meat and hide gatherer, chitin, keratin, all the things that you can gather for animals, it's going to do perfectly as well. But that Sanguine Elixir, 30% of that tame is done with a click of a button, no issues whatsoever. It really is a golden star creature when it comes to its resource gathering. I really feel as if it deserves to be in the number 2 spot. It is just so good, and that resource is just so useful to have, especially for me as a PvE player that does a heck of a lot of taming. But anyway, in at number 1 is the Anky, and also the Dodig as well. That's just a side thing. They really both do fit into the number 1 spot for me. They are just such good gatherers, but the Anky is the main one, as without metal, really, what are you going to do in Ark? I know you can gather metal without the Anky. The Mantis can gather metal really well, but the Anky gathers it a lot better. You can get crystal and obsidian a lot better. This essentially acts as the pick upgraded. I hear some people going around just like, oh, why isn't there a better pick after the metal pick? This is essentially that, and then if you want a better hatchet, then get the Dodig and it will do all of that for you. These 2 creatures are the best resource gatherers in the game. It is going to do everything that you need it to do, or everything that you need a pick or a hatchet to do, but just on another level. And if you pair them with an RG as well, if you've got some cryopods too, then you can carry them around very easily. But then, boom, like that, get loads of metal, stone, thatch, and wood, and obsidian, and crystal, and all of those resources, and then carry them all back in the RG and probably not even be encumbered whatsoever. It is just such a great resource gathering strategy, and I really do advise it. No mining drill or whatever is going to compare to the sheer amount of gathering that you can get out of a creature like this. The top 10 most retro Ark creatures. In at number 10 is the Arpora, and I can't remember what TV series it was back in the day. I think it was in the 90s or early 2000s, and the Arpora was in the Carboniferous time of that series. Things like Walking with Dinosaurs, something similar to that, and that I think really did boost the knowledge of this creature. And actually, a lot of people, when you do talk about the Carboniferous period, will think of this creature. And obviously it is an Ark, and although not the most highly respected creature out there in the game, it still really does definitely pack a punch in terms of its abilities, being able to break any kind of structure whatsoever, which is insane for PvP players, but in terms of its PvE use, it doesn't really have any. In at number 9 is the Mosa, and this creature is essentially the king of the sea, and pretty much every person that knows of oceans and dinosaurs will know of the Mosasaurus, especially considering there's that scene in Jurassic World where it comes out of the kind of like, you can't really call it a swimming pool, it's too big to be a swimming pool, but it comes out of this big kind of aquarium type thing, that's the word for it. And yeah, a lot of people know the Mosasaurus from that, and it is just known for its absolute power in the sea, and it's just such a well-known creature. And yes, you could consider these things retro, obviously they are on its list, but not as retro as some of the other creatures which are further on in the list. Next up, we have the Theory, and the Theory has been depicted for so long for obviously its shape and body. This creature is just one of those creatures which people have obviously spoken about and modelled for ages ever since its discovery. And although it's no retro Triceratops from like the 1800s, the trike isn't on this list by the way, it is still a very interesting creature in all of its features. And in terms of its uses in the art game as well, it is very useful, and it will come in handy loads across all of the playing which you'll have in this game. And it is one of the best gatherers, if not the best multi-gathering creature out there, being able to gather fibre, berries, thatch and wood like an absolute beast. And who doesn't want that in a creature like the Theory? It is just so OP in all of its abilities. Next up, we have the Spinosaurus, and this creature is definitely very well known and again has been depicted for absolutely ages, and it is one of those really iconic ones, with its spine obviously kind of being the main essence of this creature. It is called Spinosaurus afterwards. Not sure fully what that is translated from Latin into English. The saurus part is pretty obvious. Is the spino part just meaning spine? Does it just mean spine lizard? It might mean spine lizard. At this point, who knows? Leave a comment down below if you do actually know the Latin to English translation for this creature, as I'd really love to know. But in terms of its abilities in Ark, this is actually one of the most well-rounded carnivores out there. Although it doesn't have the highest health stat compared to some other Ark creatures, it still really does pack a punch, especially in terms of mobility, which you don't really get in some of the bigger carnivores, as it can turn 360 on the spot, and it is really good in the water as well, and it can even go up into its hind legs and deal even more damage. This definitely is a creature worth talking about. Now, the Stego has been very well known for a huge amount of time. This is pretty much the most common herbivore for any person really that remotely knows anything dinosaurs. I don't know why it sounded like I was going to say retarded there. I didn't mean retarded. I don't know what I was thinking of. But yes, any person that kind of knows dinosaur and knows T-Rex and that kind of stuff, they'll know the Stegosaurus and the Triceratops, and you can kind of put the trike here. That would work. The trike can go here as well if you're a kind of trike person, but in terms of memories and retroness and nostalgia for me, the Stego definitely deserves to be on this list more than the trike. But if you're a trike lover, you can take the trike in this spot as well. And also, these things are somehow immune to Microraptors as well, which is just a nice little great ability, which I don't know how many other creatures have in the Ark game, but it's probably just because of rider protection. That ability is absolutely OP. In at number 5, we have the Carno, and this creature is so iconic for its shape mainly, and also the fact that it gets heavily criticized for its arms as well, as they are some of the tiniest things which you will find out there. And I don't actually know why these things' arms are so tiny. I guess they really just didn't need them in any way at all. They were just needed that big head, which can even crush safes if they were still in the real world. Obviously they aren't anymore, but if two clash together, that has enough force to literally break a safe in half, or crush it. Probably it probably won't split the metal. Well, it will, but you know, it's not going to be like clean cut satisfying YouTube video breaking through safe. I don't even know what would come up if you search that. There would be an absolute mess if two Carnos clash together. But either way, the force of them is absolutely insane. And yes, the way that these creatures are depicted, they're just generally known for sort of being that retro dinosaur. If you put a Carnotaurus up, people are going to know what you're talking about. Next up, we have the RG, and albeit the RG hasn't been depicted for huge amounts of time, it still definitely has since the 90s, and it has obviously gained a lot of press. And if you do kind of put the RG there, people will say bird or Argentavis, it just kind of depends. But either way, this kind of shape of creature, and this general creature as well, is quite a standard one as well, and in a lot of ways retro as well, and definitely a nostalgic one for Ark players too, due to its absolutely immense use in the game. And sadly, when making the thumbnail for this video, because I do 3D renderings in Blender to get the images for the dinos on my thumbnails, I couldn't find the original RG model from the game, but if I could get a file for that and then make a thumbnail with it, that would be great for a top 10 video. Sadly, we're just going to have to stick with the new one, but the new model is so much better than the old one. We do have to agree on that. But you know, the old model for Ark is significantly kind of more retro-y vibes. Now, next up, we have the Allosaurus, and this creature kind of goes hand in hand with the Rex, really, in terms of retro dinosaurs and those, like, 50s and 60s movies. You may find yourself an Allosaurus there amongst everything, and obviously you will get T-Rexes more commonly, but the Allo is definitely very common as well, and it does have a very signature shape, obviously usually being depicted as smaller than a Rex, with kind of somewhat more of an armoured head and generally more kind of armoured scales on them. That's how they tend to be depicted, and you know, maybe like completely upright like they were in the 50s movies as well, which isn't really accurate at all, but you know, we definitely have come a long way since then. But you know, the Ark Allo model still probably isn't, well, actually no, it definitely isn't the best Allo depiction out there. I'm not sure if they had feathers or not. I know the Rex did, but you know, we're still kind of in the era of, oh yeah, all dinosaurs are just scaly creatures. But a lot of dinosaurs apparently had feathers, and we have a lot of evidence for this. I'm not saying, oh yeah, dinosaurs, they didn't have feathers. No, they did. Which is, yeah, that's a thing for Ark 2, isn't it, really? Look out for that in Ark 2. Now, has anyone heard of the Raptor? Because if you haven't been living under a rock for the past maybe 60 years, 50 years, 70 years even, then you should know what this creature is. The Velociraptor is one of the most retro creatures, and if you just chuck it on somewhere, anywhere, everyone will know that this is a Velociraptor. It's just a thing that everyone has to know. Even the absolute stupidest of Americans will know what this is. And I know I can't really say that because I'm not an American. I don't have experience of America. Tell me, Americans, does everyone know what a raptor is? Hopefully they do. Otherwise, I'm very concerned for your country. That would be sad if you didn't know what the Velociraptor is. But I'm assuming if you're watching an art channel like I am, then you're gonna know what the Velociraptor is. And although it's not called the Velociraptor in Ark, it's called the Raptor. You know, you still know what it is, and it still is that kind of retro creature. You chuck it on an NES game. Not sure if it is in any NES games actually, but if you chuck it in an NES game, you're still going to know what it is, no matter how low the pixel count, unless it's maybe 1 pixel. That might be a little bit too far. And in at number 1 is the Rex. And what really did you expect? This creature is just kind of the most retro-y creature out there. Just everyone knows what it is, and it's been depicted through the ages in so many things, all the way from those really terrible B movies of the 50s right to today, and it is definitely considered a kind of retro dinosaur. And you can go back through all the ages and look through all of the different depictions of the Rex, and you can't really say that about all the creatures on the list, but there are definitely some different depictions of all the creatures here, but not with the sheer variety that a creature like the Rex has. And although the Ark Rex model still does look very nice and kind of very what the Rex maybe would have looked like if it was around in real life, still it is missing those feathers like I've said earlier. But the Ark 2 Rex does seem to have them, so I can't actually wait for Ark 2 to come out, whenever that is. Honestly, I'm not even going to look at the launch date. I'm just going to wait for a trailer with the launch date to come out. That obviously wasn't the original trailer. That said like June 2022 or something like that. As a yeah, it's a lot past June 2022 now.
Now, of course, we must shout out our Patreons, Ekaterina Pechkova and Karina Thorne, who are our paid Patreon members at the moment. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate everyone on this list. Everyone else is, of course, free members. Thanks for the support, though.